Hello and welcome to another edition of Razorwire. Today we're going to be continuing with our interview sessions where we interview key people from information security as an industry. And today we have Amy Stokes-Waters, who is the CEO of the Escape Room. She's all over LinkedIn. You have to be hiding under a rock to not have seen some of the content that she delivers. She's a very honest individual. I've spoken with her a few times. Obviously, as a precursor to this video, she's going to be fantastic. So please sit down, watch it all the way through because it's been an absolute blast having a chat with her. Amy, do you kind of want to introduce yourself to the viewers and the listeners?
Hi, everyone. And hi, Jim. So my name's Amy Stokes-Waters. I am the CEO at the Cyber Escape Room company. So we provide cybersecurity awareness training in the form of immersive, interactive escape room experiences.
Fantastic. It's been interesting to see your kind of journey from when you really kind of started out. Because I mean, I've been seeing your content for quite a while now, and I've been definitely very, very intrigued. But just kind of before we go into that, just tell us a bit about your history. I mean, tell us, how did you get into InfoSec? What was your journey like?
Yeah, so I think probably like a lot of people who've been in the industry, I've been in it 5 or 6 years now. I think most people I know kind of fell into it, and that is definitely the same story for me. So I've started out as a project manager like 12 years ago, I think. I am horrendous at project managing, so I was did not go down that well. But I quickly switched to sales, where I found my forte, I think. Ended up selling the Microsoft security stack with a SP, and moved into kind of the enterprise space, which is when I started using LinkedIn a lot more as well. Then moved into selling pen testing, and then started my own business. So we started off selling pen tester training. So I had a business partner who we won't mention, who, we were doing pen tester training for some quite prestigious companies. And then one of our friends kind of said to us, we want to do something a bit different with the teams, like a team building kind of thing. And we came up with the escape room idea. So when my business partner left and I had clearly no experience in pen tester training, being from a sales and marketing background, I went, shit, what can I sell now? And I thought, well, the escape rooms, I can build them. I can come up with a concept for them, and I'm pretty good at marketing them. So yeah, that's kind of how I've got to where I am.
Tell us a bit about the kind of like the escape room stuff that you're doing at the moment.
I mean, I decided to kind of push it as a business because kind of when we looked at security awareness training, I always think, oh my God, could it be more dull? I don't know many people that proactively undertake security awareness training. Sitting watching videos and animations and all that kind of thing. I genuinely don't know anyone that does that as a hobby. But I think it's something that's super important. So we always sit there and say, the users are the weakest link. Well, why are we giving them boring stuff to kind of try and help them along that journey then? So if we want them to be not the weakest link, surely we need to give them something that they're interested in that's engaging for them. So yeah, that's kind of where we kind of started pushing that idea from. I've got 3 scenarios now, building a 4th, got ideas for about 6 more. That kind of teach about, not just about phishing, because I think a lot of security awareness training does focus on just phishing as well. A lot of the scenarios that we've got will focus on password security because as you might guess, escape rooms inherently lend themselves quite nicely to password security. But we've got other themes that are in there as well. So we've got stuff around like access control or disinformation is one that we're looking at building soon. And then we've got the next one that's coming out is going to be about insider risk, which I don't think end users ever seem to kind of get told about that much. It does seem to be really heavily phishing focused, which is fine because I think that is one of the biggest threat areas. But I think there's also other things that we can be doing to kind of equip our people as well.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's almost a bit of a dirty word in InfoSec. A lot of people don't like to talk about that kind of insider risk. And I mean, I go back many, many years now when I've started having some of those discussions with organizations, and they'd be like, but we trust our people. It's like, well, that's great. And it's...
I'll tell you a story. So when I used to sell pen testing, we used to sell, obviously, internal pen tests. And I can probably tell you about 90% of the customers, when you presented them with the pen test report, will go, yeah, you got to be on the network for that, though.
Yeah.
One guy had 3,000 users, and I said, you've got 3,000 people that you're freely giving access to your network to. And he went, yeah, well, they're all nice. I was like, have you interviewed all of them? I mean, that would take, I'm sure you've got better things to do with your time than go around 3,000 people and vet them. And I said, it's not just about whether, it's not even just inside, it's not even just, the people that are employed by you, because if they're getting phished or if they're unhappy in the business, they're the targets for ransomware gangs.
Well, this is one of the big thing with access brokers at the moment. They're actively saying, if you're an internal user who doesn't like the fact you didn't get pay rise, or you didn't get the promotion that you wanted, then please feel free to get in contact with us, and I'll actually offer a percentage of the ransomware bounty.
I saw something the other week in the news where someone, I think it was at Tesla, some guy had walked out of Tesla, and there was a guy stood outside with like a briefcase full of cash saying, just give us your username and password.
Yeah.
For £1 million worth of cash or whatever. And the guy obviously said no, which is why we've heard about it. But yeah, I don't think it's an uncommon practice.
Well, it's a strange one as well, because it's like, I mean, I come across a lot of these kind of, and I've got to be careful what I say here, but the crowdsource kind of hacking people, where they're getting cheap labor from parts of the world where there's relatively cheap labor, and they're getting them to pen test organizations. And I've always said, well, hang on a minute, you're paying these guys, people to do this kind of thing, but they're living in countries where £20,000, £30,000 in our money is significant. And if somebody approaches them and says, we know you work for these guys, if you could give us the in on the vulnerabilities within some of their big clients, just let us know, and what we'll do is we'll pay you.
I wrote a blog about it, probably last year, about bug bounty as a crowdsourcing your pen testing. And I said, well, how are you ever guaranteeing that they're telling you all of the information? So they're sitting there and pen testing, the bit of the network that you said, or the application or whatever it is that you said is fine to go have a go at. How do you know they're giving you all the information? They might just be giving you the low-level vulnerabilities, or ones that are, more difficult to exploit, and not telling you about the easier ones or different ones.
And then selling them off to Lockbit,
or exploiting them themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know who the person is that's doing the bug bounty, do you?
Well, this is it, and I think the industry is waking up quite significantly, or the business world is waking up quite significantly to the security threats to them. And ransomware has been a really big kind of, how best to describe this, a bit of a kick in the butt for a lot of people who realize that they could be a target. Because I mean, you used to hear all the time when I was a lot younger in my trade, why would anyone go for us? We're a hospital, we're a insert random company here. And I'm like, well, no, you will be, because if they can see they can make money off of you, then they will do. And lo and behold, I think last week, yet another hospital was attacked over in the US, and they're really getting pounded hard. And it's frightening to see, I mean, I've been in this game for 27 years, and the change in view and the change in the way people perceive a security, especially in the last 5 years, has been a massive, massive change. We still don't get the budgets that we need in many respects. I mean, I was pulling up some stats for a talk I've got in a couple of weeks' time. And I think it was like 450 billion is being spent at the moment on information security. Yet, it's about 9.5 trillion in criminal, in criminal damage, not damage, but, criminal activity. It's worth 9.5 trillion. So yeah, we've still got a little bit of a catch up there to go.
I think all the small businesses who say that they're not going to be a target as well,
Well, they're the easiest.
Well, I mean, well, they're kidding themselves, because I think all you have to do is look how big businesses buy a lot of stuff off small businesses. So if you're in that supply chain and you've got access to systems, just when you look at, what was it, Kaseya?
Mm.
Yeah, when you look at that, I mean, they're not well. I mean, they're quite a big business, but the access that they had to all the other businesses.
And the supply chain and again, you and I are firing from the same cannon here. You know, the supply chain has, since all the lockdowns and everybody going, you know, the forcible sort of move to the cloud. I mean, obviously it'd been moving for a while, but you know, it was the real kind of, right now we need to outsource everything because, you know, we don't know where people are going to be working and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of opened up that problem with the supply chain. And we've seen some of these from some big names who utilize, as you say, smaller companies for services. And then those smaller companies get compromised. And it's not just kind of them that are compromised. All of the clients of any other customers that they have are also compromised, and it can go down quite a significant chain.
Was Marriott done by, wasn't that like some web company that Marriott got done by? Yeah, it was something like that. It wasn't actual Marriott systems that got compromised initially. They jumped from a supplier to Marriott.
This just kind of goes into it. You know, we put a lot of input and security into our own systems, you know, my system, my laptop, our servers, and so on and so forth. We're not looking down that supply chain as much as I think we need to do. You know, I'm sure you've also got customers where you see they get sent the form. Do you have an InfoSec policy? Do you have some endpoint security? And I'm looking at these forms and going, okay, so we've touched the smallest possible base of InfoSec we feasibly can, and that's meant to be what proof that that they're secure, you know.
I was talking to a guy this week who said when he was in the police it was something like to join the public, what's it called, the public sector network. They had to have a SIEM in place, so they put a SIEM in. They didn't have to
do anything with it.
No one had to monitor it. No one like rules on which logs you had to be looking at or that you had to submit somewhere. It was just, you have to have a SIEM.
I mean, oh God, I've got so many stories down this route. I mean, I've been a QSA for years for my sins. I've just recently retired from auditing, so you know, I've given up the ghost now and gone on to kind of running the business. But the amount of times, especially in the early days, where you'd have like, do you have any IDS, IPS? Yes, we got that. Okay, right. Open up the dashboard. Let's have a look. And you look. They open it up, and you see it's in learning mode. It's not actually doing anything. It's just kind of, you know, delivering information on what could be dodgy and what couldn't be dodgy. It's not actually stopping anything because they're too frightened to turn it on in case it starts stopping legitimate traffic. And that's like, well, are you going to get through your PCI certification if you haven't actually turned the damn thing on, you know? And I mean, the amount of times I've seen firewalls where, you know, there's an any rule sitting in the middle of it, and it's like, it's a router. At this point, you've basically built a very expensive router. What have you done? You know, I was too frightened to take the rule out in case something breaks. And you know, the mindset towards security has definitely changed, as I said, in the last 5 years. And I think it's only for the better. I mean, are you seeing a lot more engagement, you know, when it comes to like business owners rather than just kind of like CISOs? Because, I mean, we all know what the message is in the InfoSec thing, but are you seeing a lot more engagement with what you're doing with the escape rooms, what have you, from CEOs, CIOs, CFOs?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the people. So, I mean, most of the people I talk to are probably in that CISO kind of head of role. But I think a lot of them are looking at the stuff that I'm doing and saying, let's engage the board with it. So I'm flying to Miami in June because one of my customers over there is doing like a tabletop exercise kind of thing with their C-suite, and he wanted something that was a bit more engaging. So yeah, I think they are trying to include them more in those kind of discussions. Because I think you have to, because otherwise, what do you do? Sit there and say that security is the CISO's problem?
Well, I think
I know that's a whole can of worms.
I think the SEC, you know, I think that whole SEC problem at the moment with the SolarWinds CISO, you know, I mean, that's something that we've discussed on this channel a number of times, and I think a lot of us in the InfoSec community are really kind of interested to see how that one goes, because I think that that's going to set some serious precedent. And then we got DORA obviously coming in next year, which, in Europe is going to be quite significantly sort of changing the way that people are looking at security. And I think, the landscape of where security is going to be over the next 5 years. I mean, what are your opinions on where do you think it's going? Do you think that we're going to maintain this trajectory? I mean, bearing in mind, we do have this kind of brewing economic issue starting over in the States that seem, lots of people are getting ditched. AI is obviously being looked at as the next kind of big thing. I mean, what are your predictions?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all think that AI is going to be the savior, don't we? But I don't see how that's possible. I think we need some humans on the ground checking what the fuck the AI is coming out with and training it in the right ways. Yeah, I mean, I think companies are taking it a lot more seriously. So I'm hoping that we do kind of continue down that kind of route where it's not just thrown to the side. Although then I always think, what's the first teams that end up going when there's mass redundancies? Usually marketing. They get binned off. But it ends up being like all the junior people that are in teams. And I think if we start binning off the junior people in these security teams, well, we're going to screw ourselves over for the future because they're not getting the experience that they need.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I kind of ran a load of masterclasses. I mean, the original reason we started kind of doing this podcast and these interviews was to kind of educate young InfoSec professionals into this game. I mean, again, you look at Cybersecurity Ventures, they're saying there's like 3.5 million roles going unfilled.
Well, whether I can wax lyrical about the reasons behind that.
Go on then.
Well, have you seen the job descriptions for some of these roles?
I haven't gone for a role in InfoSec for a long time, but
I saw a job description the other week where you had to be expert in SOC and also an expert pen tester.
Cool. That's going to drive up that price.
Yeah, but they were paying crap. They were paying nothing for it either. So it's like they're paying like 60 grand, but they want you to have experience in everything, and I mean everything. So that's the issue that we've got. The job specs that are coming out are just dreamt up by someone who, well, the people don't exist. So the job we're saying there's 3.5 million jobs going. There's probably more jobs needed. Actually, there's probably more people needed because the job specs that we've got out there are ludicrous. So there's no way that we're not going to fill them because no one person could.
That's quite a diverse range of skill set to really have. I mean, in with a SOC and a pen tester. Normally, a pen tester ends up doing lots of pen testing because, let's face it, lots of people want pen testing. They're not going to cross over the road into SOC, or not very many of them. I suppose some people do change careers. I get that, but
yeah, but you're not going to be an expert in both. It's unlikely that you're going to be an expert in both fields. And be able to do forensics. And be able to look at GRC and policies. And be able to do the communication with the wider team as well. When the hell are you going to have time in the day to do all of those things? Because each one of those things is a job in itself. But then having someone who's got all those technical skills and the communication skills as well, they don't exist.
Have you seen the raft of cyber lawyers that have started coming into the game? We've got a whole ream of people coming out of law school and getting into cyber law. And I've been having a chat with a few of them. I'm hoping to have some of them on the channel to be interviewed similar to this. And it's a really interesting field.
I've probably got a guy who'd be interested in that actually, because I went over to a law firm in Manchester the other week to go meet a guy that specialises in kind of cybersecurity law and around incident response and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a few companies that marry that up quite well now, and they'll bring in the lawyer to help you with the legal aspects, and then they'll bring in the guys to kind of help you recover from the ransomware. And I did say to one guy, I said, so who are you gonna sue here? Because let's face it, the guys that have done this, they're not in a place where you've got reach. Look at Lockbit. I mean, they got taken down one day, and what was it? 5 days later, boom, they're back up and running, no problems at all.
I don't think it's an issue of who you're going to sue. I think it's around the legal ramifications for the organisation, isn't it? So, who are they liable to, and what does the company need to pay out, and how can they protect themselves in the future? And that kind of thing. So I don't think it's necessarily about bringing a law case against ransomware gangs, because like you say, that's never going to happen.
I have seen a few people who've tried.
And were they successful?
Obviously not. I mean, it's I think I find I do find the InfoSec space pretty funny, to be totally honest, because people who are in it, like myself, yourself, and various other guests that we have on, we've got all this kind of very pragmatic view of InfoSec and how it works. And we always have a good laugh over when politicians and what have you start legislating in this space, because it's like, guys, did you actually speak to any InfoSec people when you were drafting this stuff up?
It's like that. It's like that guy in Missouri. I think it was Missouri, where he said that if you push F12, you're hacking into a website, and you're like, really?
What are your thoughts on this kind of? I mean, obviously you mentioned AI before. I mean, it's become a massive buzzword now, isn't it? Everybody's got AI in everything.
Well, everyone says they've got AI in everything.
But I mean, do you think? I mean, I have a view. I mean, we've covered AI a number of times on the channel. I'm actually going to introduce. I'm going to see if you want to come on one of those, because I think you could give some of the guys a run for money here. I mean, I see AI as a positive benefit if it's used in the right way, but I kind of agree with the statement you made earlier on, whereby you have to have like a human being who's kind of like in control there. I mean, they're great for disseminating large amounts of information. I mean, I am that poor sod who at some point has had the massive stack of logs downloaded from various different seams and firewalls, and I'm trying desperately to find a very, very small, tiny pin in the middle of this massive haystack of information. And I think that's where AI works very well. Could you find me what's going on in here, please? And off it toddles and goes and tells you what's going on. But I mean, having it in control of networks and systems, I think that's something that we're a long time away from, unless we want to go down the whole kind of Skynet route.
Yeah, I don't know. So I was at a meetup with a load of insurance CISOs the other week, and Rick Ferguson was talking at it around AI, but he said that it's not necessarily that we're using it for that kind of thing. It's the use of he was talking specifically about the use of it for disinformation. So how it's affecting geopolitics and all that. Literally when the Brexit thing happened, a lot of that was disinformation, which was disseminated via AI. So I think from a threat perspective, just from a I guess a political point of view, it's already in use in a way that probably a lot of people, if you've not thought about it or if no one's kind of pointed it out to you, probably don't really realize it. But a lot of the stuff that we see on social media, that's all disseminated. There's a lot of AI in that. And then and I said to you earlier, I was in Africa the other week, and I was talking to some people over there, and they were saying that the elections that they've got over there are all heavily influenced with disinformation disseminated via AI. So I do think AI is in use from a very real threat perspective, and I don't think that we're using it potentially in the right way to kind of combat the threats. I think, like you said, we're using it for, let's have a look at some logs. But I think it's much more I think it is a much more powerful tool. I just don't think we've worked out kind of how to wield it in the right way. Whereas I think some of the bad guys have probably got a bit of a better handle on it.
Well, they got less ethics, I mean, I tell you what really scares me recently, that Sora video. You've seen the Sora videos, the AI generated video that ChatGPT is currently just about to release, and they're fantastic.
Yeah, I think Rick showed us it. So there was I think there was an election in, I want to say, Asia somewhere, where they kind of brought back to life an ex-leader of the country and had him saying stuff about one of the new political parties that was coming out. But it looks like, I watched the video and I was like, this looks fairly realistic.
I mean, it's scary stuff. I mean, again, I was speaking to another vendor, quite a well-known vendor. And I mean, people are probably sitting there thinking, what's this got to do with information security? And it's very much got to do with information security, I think, because what we're seeing is an evolution in the tactics being used by the people we're at war with. They will use deepfakes. I mean, if you've got a big CEO, let's say somebody in charge of a particularly large social network that not everybody necessarily likes for various different reasons, and they can do a deepfake of him at a rally that wear lots of white sheets and says things that, would be considered particularly inflammatory. You know what the internet is like. Boom! All of a sudden, it's obviously true because we've got the video.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue, isn't it? People believe what's put in front of them, and people don't tend to question reality because AI come along so quickly. I mean, when did ChatGPT come out? Was it 2 years ago?
There's been a couple of iterations of it, but yeah, I mean, the explosion of popularity has been definitely in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think of people as the common person who's not kind of looking at this stuff because I mean we hear about it every day, right? Because we're in infosec and it's constantly like it's a topic of conversation in several thousand group chats that I'm in. But I think if you're not sat listening to that kind of discourse and understanding these are the things that you can actually do with AI, because most people aren't fucking interested in technology. The amount of times that I have to explain to techies, stop waxing lyrical about firewalls and shit like that, because most people who aren't in IT don't care about it. They care about getting the job done and going to the pub. They're not really bothered about it. So if you're not sat investigating all the AI stuff, you don't know that this stuff even exists. So like the Sora thing, people will be looking at videos and they won't realize that it's AI generated because there's no education piece around that.
Well, this is it, and again, education is one of our key factors here. I mean, I think one of the most insidious things I spoke with the company actually that this happened to, when the hackers when the ransomware guys realized they weren't going to get their bounty, get their money, or the ransom rather. They actually turned around and said, okay, so here's all the addresses of all your C-suite, the names of their kids, where they live, everybody. We know everything about you guys. So what do you feel now about paying paying the ransom? And it's like, wow, have we really got to that level? I mean, us InfoSec people pride ourselves in being very adaptable in any situation. You never know when you go into this role what you're going to meet. It might be a bit of malware. That was the worry back when I first got in. Christ, we didn't even have firewalls at one point. I mean, that's how old I am. But worrying about that kind of thing. But now, we're looking at all kinds of threats from all kinds of different levels, having to include PR people, for instance, in incident response from the word go, just in case something breaks, you need to have that PR piece within that incident response team. You go back about 20 years, the only times you ever really brought them in is if you're a big company and something obviously went horribly, horribly badly. But now we're having to have this multidiscipline approach of, right, so, we've got our defense in depth, but it's not enough anymore. We need more intelligence. We need more idea of what's going on. And we need to be able to adapt quickly, which takes money. And of course, they expect us to do our job quite often with £5 and a pickled egg and possibly a packet of crisps if you're really, really lucky.
I think there's legislation that's coming as well. It's kind of talked about how you have to communicate breaches to customers as well. So that's why I think that PR piece is important from a compliance perspective, because the amount of times where I've seen companies companies have got breached and they've done a disclosure to the customers. But I've seen InfoSec people who are customers of these companies that got breached going, this is a shit disclosure, and like putting them posting about it on LinkedIn or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, because the messages probably weren't the best. But I thought that you're doing that as a tick box compliance exercise because they know they have to talk to the customer. But then some of the wording's like, it was an illegal hacker gang that came in. It's like, well, who else? What was it?
Was there a legal one?
Yeah, it was illegal. And it's stuff like that where I think they've not kind of understood. I don't think a lot of companies probably don't understand InfoSec, do they?
No, I think it's changing a bit now. I think they're realizing how much they don't know. And that's why there seems to be a lot of CISO positions coming up and a lot more people moving into that role, but we don't have that level. I mean, I was talking about it a number of times.
I'm seeing the opposite of that. I'm seeing lots of CISOs leaving. So I think CISO positions are coming up because I probably know in the last, I don't know, since Christmas, probably 6 CISOs that have voluntarily left their position and said, fuck this, I'm going to go start my own thing.
A lot of this started out kind of weirdly enough around the lockdown era. I saw a lot of QSAs, I saw a lot of auditors, I saw a lot of people who high pressure jobs where, the customer's pushing for you to do stuff, and a lot of CISOs as well. And they realized what it was like to sit in the garden and watch the flowers and sit in the sun and have an iced tea or a cold glass of beer and not get shouted at and not get endless emails and not constantly under pressure to, to kind of justify their position and justify the budgets, the small budgets that they had, and why they wanted to get this particular upgrade to this whole network security piece that was going to basically fry their budget for the entire year, or even, God forbid, a GRC tool that would fry their budget for a year. And I think a lot of them went, well, I'm getting on a bit. It's definitely the older bunch. Like, I'm 50 years old, 60 years old. I've got my retirement. I've been well paid. I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to go back. Or I might do a bit of freelance stuff. And I think that's migrated on, because all of a sudden people started desperately getting CISOs because the ransomware was going nuts and everybody was concerned. So all the really good CISOs who were the next level down just got snatched up straight away, and highly paid jobs. I mean, cripes, have you seen what some of the CISOs are getting over in like New York and Silicon Valley and stuff like that?
Crazy.
Jeez.
The salaries over there are insane.
Nearly made me give up Razorthorn to go over there at one point. I'm like, I'll get paid more over there. So they all got snapped up, and then what was left was the people who could feasibly fill that role. But because they didn't have the experience, I think a lot of people went into that role going, oh, look at the money, it's great. But then they realized some of the stuff that comes with that role and the pressure, and they just went, you know what? No, maybe they saw what some of their consulting buddies were getting and said, oh, let's go and start our own consultancy. But then they don't know how difficult it is. I mean, obviously, we've talked about this offline. Running a business is a massively different skill set from doing, any other career path that you may have done, even if you're doing it in that career. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a thing? Do you think that's where we are at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of the CISOs that I've been talking to who are saying they just want to fuck it all off and go do their own thing. They're the CISO, but they're not. Well, they're the CISO, but are they the CISO? Because they're the only person in InfoSec in that company. So they've got the job title of CISO. Fine. I mean, I've got the job title of CEO. Brilliant. Everyone likes a nice job title. But if you're not you're not actually being a CISO, you're just being the only InfoSec person there, which is, that's fine, as long as the company's doing something around cybersecurity. But they're not actually getting to do that true CISO role, because they're firefighting, I don't know, they're looking at SIEM solutions and that kind of shit, which is not the job of the CISO. The CISO is to kind of oversee the strategic, or in my opinion, it's just to kind of oversee the strategic security, the strategy for the company, and kind of point them in the right direction and move them up that maturity curve, and communicate that with the board, and be there to discuss security issues with the board. But if you're constantly doing like technical stuff and firefighting and looking after incidents and all that kind of thing, you're not getting to do that kind of true CISO role. So I think we've seen a lot of CISOs that I know are in that kind of position.
I did post in LinkedIn the other day. I think you commented, actually. It's like, I've seen so many CISOs moving positions. It's like a game of Tetris. They're all dropping from the sky and kind of fitting into different roles, and then disappearing, and then dropping from the sky again and landing in other roles. It's like, I've joined this company. I'm like, my God, what's going on?
I did see something the other day on LinkedIn, though, about recruiters, which is a very bad practice from recruiters, where they're dropping people in, getting paid, and then moving them to another role so they get paid again.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I know. I mean, my background sales and marketing, and I kind of class recruitment as sales, and I'm like, come on, guys, we could do better than that.
I have so many things I could say, but I'm not going to, because I know you're a busy woman and you're reaching the end. So I need to ask you my question that I ask everybody, the secret question, which isn't so much a secret if you've ever seen any of the interviews that I've given before. I don't know if you've preempted it by looked at any of those interviews.
I did not. I thought I'd keep the surprise.
Right. There you are, Amy. You've just gotten into InfoSec. You've just gotten that first role that you had where you were actual InfoSec person, maybe in that sales role or whatever that you mentioned before. And you're in the bar after you get the news and you're like, fantastic, I've done it. I've gotten into it and I'm going to build my career in this space. Then all of a sudden, you as you are now walk through and see yourself at the bar as you were back when you first got in. What would you do if you sat down next to yourself and were able to give yourself a few pieces of poignant pointers to help you back then?
Yeah, do you know what? I'd say just you've got it. You know what you're doing. You'll work it out. Because I think if I'd not made all the mistakes that I've made in my career, and there's fucking lots of them. If I'd not made all those mistakes and taken all those risks and done all those things and got told off by several, I mean, I wrote on LinkedIn this morning, my MO at work is ask for forgiveness, not permission. Much to the disappointment of several of my managers, I'm sure. So yeah, I'd probably say, I think I'd probably just say you've got to do it. You've got to do it your way. There's no, I would, well, I hate giving unsolicited advice anyway. But yeah, I don't genuinely think I would. Well, I know myself, so I wouldn't listen to any advice. So you could tell me everything you wanted, and I'd still go. So yeah, I think yeah, I genuinely don't think I'd do anything differently, because if I'd done it differently, I wouldn't have made the mistakes that got me to where I am now.
Fair enough. It's always interesting to ask that question, because you see a lot of people say something similar. It's either I wouldn't give myself any advice, because then I wouldn't be where I am now. But then you do get a few who say things like, I'd say to myself, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Or the aggravation that you're going to sit through, where you sat there in a boardroom and someone's shouting at you because you didn't meet a target, or you need to do more with less, or we're making you redundant because we see IT as being able to manage security. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think I'd probably tell myself to be less hard on myself, because I do spend a lot of time beating myself up about, oh, you fucked up here and you should have done better there, Amy. And then, I remember that other people have probably fucked up a lot more monumentally than I have. And B, it happens. So yeah, be on your A game all the time. You've got to, I think I need to remember that sometimes.
This is it. And it's hard to remember that as well, because when sometimes you look on LinkedIn and you look down the posts, you only ever see the good things that people poke out there. You never see the terrible stuff that the CISOs have to deal with, and the mistakes that they make.
I screwed up monumentally either last week or the week before, but I wrote about it on LinkedIn and said, you know what?
Yeah, I noticed that. That was quite refreshing, actually.
I did balls up somewhere, and I did apologise to the customer, and it happens. And I've got a call with them at some point to go through some feedback about it as well, because I'm totally open. If I've done something wrong or if something's not gone right, I want to hear what I could have done better. I mean, I know exactly what I could have done better, which was send the right fucking instructions for the escape room. But yeah, I think it's really important that if you've upset someone or you've upset a customer, that you go to them and go, okay, tell me what you need to tell me, vent at me, tell me where I fucked up, because it makes them feel better because they've got to tell you about it. But B, that's the only way you learn. That's the only way you can improve. If if someone's just sat there blowing smoke up your ass all the time, telling you how fantastic you are, well, all that's going to happen is your head's going to get really big, isn't it?
Amy, I have really enjoyed this interview. You're a breath of fresh air in this rather stuffy space. I mean, it's gotten a lot better now. There's a lot of people who have a lot of fun, but I think by far you're doing fantastically with the escape rooms. You're doing fantastically on LinkedIn and all the marketing stuff that you're doing and what have you. And I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the podcast. I mean, is there anything you kind of want to let people know about? Obviously, you've got your escape room stuff. I know you've got a few other irons in the fire, so to speak, that you may or may not want to mention. But just to kind of get out there, let people know where they can find you, what
Well, I mean, find me on LinkedIn, because that is where I hang out most of the time. So yeah, there usually. You can go on the website. You can look at cyberescaperoom.co. Not .co.uk. I massively regret calling it .co, because everyone goes, is it .com? I'm like, no. Is it .co.uk? No, just .co. It's fine. It's an UTLD. Go for it. But yeah, just look at the website. You can see kind of what we do. There's videos on there. There's testimonials from some very nice customers. Oh yeah, follow me on LinkedIn.
Well, fantastic. Well, you look after yourself, Amy, and if you ever need anything from us here on Razorwire, or you want to come on or if any of you out there would like to ask Amy questions, or like to see her debate something with us on the podcast, I'll see if I can convince her to come back, because I think she's definitely got some fantastic stuff to say. So, Amy, thank you ever so much for being here and telling us a little bit about how you kind of got in and what your thoughts are on the industry.
Thank you very much.
Just want to thank everybody out there who regularly listens. Without you guys, I don't know why we'd be doing this. So thank you ever so much. And if you want to get in contact with us, you know how to get in contact with us. And thank you for listening or even watching the latest edition of Razorwire. It's always good to get feedback. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us via LinkedIn or through our website, www.razorthorn.com. If you feel that there's something that we should cover maybe a little bit more in depth, a new topic, or something of interest to you or the community at large. We'll even do interviews. If you've got any recommendations or you want us to interview people, we'll reach out to those individuals and see if we can get them on camera so we can ask them the important questions about InfoSec. So it'd be great to see what your feedback is. In addition, I do have a book recently come out, the Cyber Sentinels Handbook, a primer for information security professionals. Now, this book is very much geared up towards professionals at all levels of their career, be they starters, be they newcomers, be they people who've been in it for a little while and maybe looking for a little bit more direction, albeit the older ones looking to maybe reground themselves in some of the more important aspects of the trade that maybe they've forgotten over time. I've had lots of good feedback from a lot of different readers of a lot of different levels, so please feel free to get yourselves a copy. We've got the e-copy, we've also got the paperback copy, and if you don't want to spend any money, you can go on Kindle Unlimited and read the book for free there as well. So thank you ever so much again. Look after yourselves, and we'll be seeing you again soon.